Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. This video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. All right, guys, welcome back. So I'm going to address a topic I've been avoiding talking about for a very long time. And the reason I'm addressing this now is because I feel like we're in a transitionary phase with a broader conversation around ICP. And I think that every year from here on out, ICP is going to be mainstreamed more and more. And so that is going to change the dynamics around the ecosystem, around the general group, right? It's just things are going to change. And so I think it's worthwhile to have this conversation now because the current strategies and tactics being used are not going to work as this starts to mainstream. So irrespective of, in my opinion, I do feel like the current environment is a net negative. Um, Even if certain temporary wins have been achieved with the current strategies, what's been the end result? The end result has been a perception that just most everything is a scam and to pretty much just stay away from projects within the ecosystem. That's been the end result. So the intention could have been great, but the result sucks. So I've been very quiet about this for a long time. I've not really said anything. And so now I am. My opinion is just my opinion. I don't speak for everybody, but I will say that during this transitionary phase, the best ideas are going to win. Up until this point, it's largely just been the people who can be the loudest and the most hysterical on social media, who can create enough, you know, hysteria within the larger group. It's like that. Those are the ideas that have won up until this point for the most part. But moving forward, the best ideas are going to win, not just the loudest people. Now, I do want to pause really quick on this conversation before I get started. Um, Guys, there's never been a more optimistic time in ICP. I don't know. I know I keep saying this, but I hope that people can see this, right? And I can't, and this is really why I'm saying this, guy. I mean, there's so many different reasons, but it's like so many of y'all have the opportunity of a lifetime, man. You really do. And, you know, if you just imagine this moving forward, not just with ICP specifically, but really with like all of this tech in general across the crypto blockchain space. If you just picture this moving forward and adoption just continuing year after year from here on out, and this ultimately becoming the technology that we all use, if you just picture that scenario and you're in right now, not only that you're in right now, you're in the like the big play here, and you're one of 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people active on social media before this mainstreams. It's like you have one of the greatest opportunities. And I'm not just talking about like the investment opportunity. I'm not even specifically talking about the investment opportunity. You know, when I'm talking about this, I think of Jerry because Jerry really sees the moment. I mean, I can't, I'm so happy that happened. And it wasn't some, other like mainstream grifty YouTuber. Um, but the doors that are going to be open for Jerry in the future are hard to imagine for me, just because of what he's done up until this point. And so there are so many opportunities for so many of y'all. And it's like all I see, I'm not gonna say all I see because I don't want to be dramatic, but most of what I see is just hysterical shit posting. And it's like, dude, you have one of the best opportunities you're ever going to get. Guys, all you have to do, take it from me, okay? Take it from me, seriously. ICP will make you look like a much smarter person than you actually are if you just give rational, common sense takes and don't flip flop and don't act like an hysterical lunatic and just outlast all the other people who do that. The doors that will open to you, I'm serious, it, it won't even seem real over time if you just do that. It's the opportunities available to some of y'all. It's like it's so hard for me to even believe. Like it almost makes me think that I'm in a simulation, right? And I don't want to pursue a lot of opportunities that probably would be available to me. I have no interest at all. But you truly, I can't overstate that there's just endless opportunity for you if you want it. But if you want to act like a hysterical shit poster all the time, you're going to be viewed as an hysterical shit poster. It's just, you know, if I would have been hysterically shit posting for the last 3 years, that's how I would be viewed today. So your opinion will never, ever matter more than it does right now. I say that in some ways, I guess it's technically contingent on you in all reality. But as adoption happens, guys, your opinion is going to be diluted. Your vote is going to be diluted, right? So right now, it's a very unique situation in the ICP space where it's just a small group of people, right? And people within the ICP space can kind of use that to create additional leverage and pressure on certain projects. But that won't be the case moving forward, not unless you keep the same degree of reach that you have right now as this scales out, which you're probably not going to do because you conduct yourself as a 12-year-old. And at some point this goes mainstream. And it's like, so it's like your strategy, it's not that I don't like it or that it's a net or I think it's a net negative. It's not going to be effective, big picture. It's a temporary strategy. It's not going to work big picture. And that in all reality, I could make a very strong case for why it's been a net negative up until this point, irrespective of how great the intentions were. This has been the result, in my opinion. Again, I don't speak for everybody. And guys, listen, man, 80% of y'all may disagree with what I'm saying. I have no idea, and I don't really care, right? Um, I never really think about how people are going to perceive what I'm saying. I don't get like in my mind about or if I say this, will they not like this or um only on things when it comes to like projects will I do that. Just because those are different dynamics. But your opinion will never matter more than it does right now. Okay. And so, like, if you do want your voice to matter, big picture, you have to do things to put yourself in a position to where that's realistic. Like, if in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, you want your opinion to matter more than it does now, you should do things to put yourself in that position. If you just hysterically shitpost most of the time, I don't know why you would expect to be in that position in the future. So, and at the end of the day, guys, a lot of people are just wrong. A lot of people have declared things scams that are probably going to go up, and a lot of people are probably going to look like idiots as this unfolds. And that's another problem. A lot of these things aren't scams. A lot of them will probably do well. It's created this environment, and it's not sustainable long term. So it's just now I was advocating for creating advocacy groups, like I think all the way back to 2 years ago, but definitely within the last 12 months. I thought about this a long time ago. And because it was clear that the new web was going to run based on a governance system at the network and the application level. And so in my mind, I'm thinking normies need, guys, I'm all for, so much so that I've spent tons of time thinking about how to do this. I've creating some type of a framework for advocacy groups, kind of like lobbying groups in all reality. So it's organized and it's strategic, and it can actually last as this scales. This model being used right now is not going to last as this scales. The effectiveness of the current strategies is solely contingent on everything being very, 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 very small and this not being mainstreamed and not a lot or not very much at all investment capital. So the current strategies and the tactics aren't going to work as this scales out. Your opinion is going to be diluted. You're just going to be another anonymous reply guy screaming from the cheap seats. And so that's why I'm having this conversation, man. You know, um, I'm just, I'm not taking that on, not because I'm lazy. It's because I don't want my opinion to matter more than it already does. And I know that if I were to start like spearheading certain projects like this, I mean, I don't want to be that person. Okay. Um, I'm happy to like help out in whatever ways with people who do want to work on things like this. But like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have anything to do with a lot of different decisions or a lot of different public conversations about decisions and governance and things of that nature. Um, I will try to limit that on my end as much as possible. And that's because I don't like that my opinion would influence other people's decisions with this specifically. All right. I mean, I know that it's going to like on other things more broadly, but I don't like that. Anyways, um, so I agree in principle that retail should be fighting for things and advocating for things that they feel like are in their best interest. Okay. That's why I was talking about this a very, very long time ago. I agree in principle. I disagree in practice because, in my opinion, in practice, what actually has been done up until this point has led us here. There are effective ways and ineffective ways to go about doing things. And when this mainstreams, you will just be another person screaming from the cheap seats. Your opinion is going to be diluted from here on out. It will never matter more than it does right now. That goes for me. That goes for pretty much everybody. The only way that your opinion is not going to be diluted is if you can keep the same degree of influence as this scales, which is probably not going to be possible. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I'm looking forward to my opinion being diluted. But um, you may think it's a win, like if y'all strong arm an SNS project, right? And pause real quick on that. So, guys, listen, you would have missed the biggest play in ICP if you listened to ICP Twitter, which was SNS1, right or wrong. See, that's the problem with this type of an environment. When everything gets blanketly labeled as a fucking scam, it's like people miss huge opportunities. And so I remember SNS1 very clearly. And I remember the things being said about SNS1. And SNS1 was a giant monster play for me. And so will whatever the next big play in the ecosystem is going to be. But when you have an environment where everything's getting blanketly labeled as a scam, it's just a net negative all around. Um, yes, I agree. Retail should be advocating for things that are in their best interests, but at what cost? Because the current tactics and strategies have led us to this point. And if you want to be taken as a serious person, but you shitpost pretty much all the time, it's like I don't understand why you then want to pause and be selective of when you decide to be a serious person. If you act like a non-serious person the majority of the time on social media, which I see people doing, and then I see them trying to pivot and want to be taken seriously on something, and it's like it falls on deaf ears. I like to meme and joke and have a good time. Um, I like to shit post sometime. I'm not always like this, like super, like I like to joke around. If you follow me on social media, you probably see that. But I also understand that there are certain conversations that require a more adult conversation. And I think that early stage projects is one of those topics. I don't know what the right solution is. Again, I'm just saying that where we are is probably not ideal, and it's worth starting a conversation about better ways to handle things, in my opinion. So back to the previous point, though, if you regularly act like a non-serious person, expect to be treated as a non-serious person. Like you can, but it's like you're doing it to yourself. You can have one or the other. You can be a shit poster parody account, or you can just be viewed as a normal person who's says common sense, rational things. Guys, I'm telling you, man, for those of you who want the opportunity, all you have to do is just be a voice of reason, say common sense things. ICP will make you look like a million times smarter person than what you actually are. But so many people are literally just, you know, like like if I were to ask y'all, like, guys, what would you do if you had the opportunity to be some of the first people in an ecosystem that was ultimately going to become, over a long enough time frame, really the hub for the new web? What would you do, guys, if I gave you this opportunity? Like, this is, you're going to be one of the first 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people active on social media at the ground floor before this gets adopted, mate, across the entire world over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What would you do with that opportunity? Well, most of you, regardless of what you would have said to that question, most of you have just decided to shitpost, being given the opportunity of a lifetime. Doors could open for you that you could never imagine. I can tell you that from personal experience. But if you just want to shitpost all the time, that's fine. You're just not going to be taken as a serious person, and you shouldn't expect to be taken as a serious person. People, and this is another thing too that plays into this, is that, like with newer people, man, but this happens with people who've been in the ICP space for a while too, man. So I don't want to pawn this off on new people. Um, and again, guys, marketplace of ideas. All I'm doing is giving an alternative perspective, or a different, or an additional perspective. Um, my voice is only my voice. I don't speak for everybody. If you disagree with what I'm saying, that's perfectly fine. I don't really care, but it is perfectly fine. And I'm trying to have a big picture, serious conversation about things that can actually last and be effective long term. That's why I'm doing this. I don't think the current strategies and approach are going to be effective long term. I would argue they haven't been effective up until this point, even though there might be some short term, temporary wins or perceivable wins. If the net effect across the board is this, I would just argue it's not, that's not it. And I mean, people could have conversations about what would be better ideas, better strategies. I would argue forming advocacy groups, it's not something that could happen overnight, but it is something that could happen over time. And in my opinion, it would be a sustainable thing. I mean, guys, you can turn these lobbying groups into DAOs. Really, what you're doing is you're creating, I'm not going to go there right now, but you could turn these into DAOs, guys. I would start thinking about it like that. Like, if you really want your voice to matter, you need to be organized. You need to be strategic. You need to work together effectively with other people. the opportunities in front of you are so big that I don't think that a lot of people can see it. And I think that's why a lot of people act the way they do with different things. But I'm telling you, for those of you that can see it, the doors that will be open to you are stupid. If you want them. I don't. Okay. So which is good news for a lot of you because it's going to create opportunities for other people. But yeah, people are hardwired to think scam right now. And I do think that a lot of this will even out over time. I think as the public perception starts to be more normalized, I do think people that like already in the ecosystem, I do think they're going to shift. But I think right now, just because bear market PTSD, people are hardwired to just think scam rug pull on almost anything where there's questionable matters. You know what I mean? This is supposed to be a conversation starter. I don't expect this to happen overnight. Um, Maybe not at all. But this is not an adult environment, in my opinion. This is not a serious environment. Um, I don't know what one would look like. I could kind of talk that through, but I don't think this is a serious adult environment. I do believe retail should be advocating for things that are in their best interest, but there are more effective ways to do this, in my opinion. And I think that starts with creating advocacy groups. And that's a general term, an idea, and it could go in a lot of different directions. But okay, the current model, the current strategies and tactics, it's not organized, it's not strategic, and it's not set up to stand to be effective as this scales. The only way that this is effective as this scales is if every single person keeps the same degree of reach and influence, which isn't going to happen. When it becomes, let's just call it 1,000 people active on Twitter, ICP Twitter, when that becomes 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, at some point we're not going to be on Twitter, but you see what I'm saying? Your opinion will just be diluted. And so it's worthwhile thinking about big picture, long term, if you actually are serious about advocating for things in retail's best. If you're just trying to shitpost for effect, because see, that's what a lot of people are doing. Let's not act like a lot of people that do this are doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it for effect. They're just doing it to be a shitposter, and they're doing it because it becomes like this hive mind type situation. But at some point, right, you in this situation becomes a net negative for the ecosystem. I don't know what that point is. I'm not like the arbiter of truth on this. I'm just giving my opinion as somebody who's sat quietly by for a long time. I've watched projects that I'm invested in that I think are going to do well, be called a scam and everything else, and said nothing. So it's like I've been very quiet and about this whole situation. But at some point, it does become a net negative. And at some point, like all the justifications of why don't fucking matter if this is where we are. And I would argue this is where we are. And I would also say that a lot of the current environment was initially created. And there are, I'll just put it this way, a couple different people that I addressed had a big hand in creating this environment early on, right? And they were doing some of the sketchiest shit in the entire ecosystem. But what were they doing the whole fucking time? Pointing their finger at everybody else, right? Meanwhile, what was going on behind the scenes with them? And so I'm not saying that's the case for everybody else. I'm just saying that this was all started, this whole environment was started, in my personal opinion, to some degree, just as a way to project and deflect attention elsewhere from certain individuals. And then it just became the norm, which is what it is right now. But at some point, it very much does become a net negative, man. And at the end of the day, the best ideas are going to win moving forward, not the loudest ones. Saying you have great intentions, but the result being a net negative, you know, your intentions don't mean anything if the results are always negative or on average negative. I don't get involved with governance for a reason. Um, you know, I don't talk shit about projects for a reason, man. It's, you know, I mean, unless it would have to go very far for me to, because here's the thing, I understand a lot of these founders, regardless of whether or not they do everything that y'all want them to do, I understand that they're pretty much pouring their life, some of them are, into their project. And I know that if I say certain things, that it will have an impact. And I don't want to do that to people. I also don't want to see projects scamming other people. But there's millions of scams, man. Here's the thing, guys. There's very little value. I always wait till the end to make the most important points. There's very little value in you running around on the internet to tell people what's a scam. I mean, there's 99.9999999. I mean, it's the entire crypto space is 99+% scams by design. The better thing to do would be to focus where the opportunity is. And the scammy stuff, just, it's not even a real thing to you. It's like you don't even mention it because it's not even a real thing. But I do understand, though, that there does need to be some degree of that. Right? I think that was the idea around the initial, like the IC protector account, right? And then I know there's like some stuff with that now, or like there's some disagreements. But yes, I do think that, you know, there should be people who identify red flags. I mean, that's it's very important too, man. I would just argue that we've gone overboard and that it went way too far in one direction. And I think the reason for that is because 2 years of bear market PTSD was because we have had people come into the ecosystem and do really sketchy shit. And that kind of created a situation where everybody was very defensive and kind of skeptical, overly skeptical, maybe. I don't know. I just, this is where we are, in my opinion. And so we can like talk about why all the things that were done and said were actually good, but or had the best of intentions, but this is where we ended up, right? And so this is just come to our ecosystem, everything's a scam. That's not a, see, I actually care about onboarding people. Some people in the ICP space just virtue signal about onboarding people. They do that to justify shit posting and acting like a hysterical loser because it's all in the name of onboarding people. See, I actually really care about onboarding people. And what I'm telling you is that when I onboard people and they come into the ICP ecosystem and some of you create an environment that makes it seem like everything's a fucking scam, that creates a problem for me. And so I will create a fucking problem for you. And I'm being dead fucking serious about this. I put way too much time and energy into this. But I don't get involved with governance for a reason because I want my opinion to matter less, not more. And if some of you were in my position, you would have a change of heart about how much you really want your opinion to matter. When it like when you don't really have a platform, and when I say don't really have a platform, it's just because you don't really want a platform. I'm not saying you don't have a platform because you want one, but just don't have one. But like when you don't really have a platform, I can see things from that perspective because I've been in that perspective. I've been in that point, you know, that position in numerous different, you know, points. And but if some of y'all were in my position, you would rethink how much you really want your opinion to matter. Because the more your opinion matters, the more responsibility it's on you. And see, a lot of people don't want to take on the responsibility on a consistent basis. And see, that's really a problem. They want to act like a non-serious person and shitpost 80% of the time. And then they want to be taken serious when they decide they want to be taken serious at different points in time. That's not the way this works. Not because I don't want it to work that way. That's just life. You are perceived based on your actions, your words, the things that you do. If you are going to do it, and when I say do it, I more so mean working together to advocate for things that you care about. If you're going to do it, try to do it the right way. I would argue the current model is not the right way because it's not organized, it's not strategic, it won't stand the test of time, and one could argue that it's been a net negative, irrespective of certain examples that you can point to where there was a win. But even if you want to sit here today and say no, it's actually been an effective. It's been a. I'm not saying. I'm talking about net, like in aggregate. Has it been positive or negative? I would say negative. Despite you can point to certain examples where it worked. But if you are going to do that, try to do it the right way. The right way is debatable, but I would argue not having a strategy and people just shouting things from Twitter. Meanwhile, you have new people coming in, and that's what they're seeing is a bunch of people just shouting, and the pitchfork crowd. If that's what new people see, is that really a conducive environment to onboarding new people? The pitchforks out all day, every day, in the name of accountability. Again, I'm all for accountability, and I think that there's more effective ways to go about doing things. And I think it's worth having those conversations. But yeah, I mean, I would just argue to try to do it the right way. And this is supposed to be a conversation starter. And it's also supposed to be just an alternative perspective. This has gotten too one-sided, in my opinion, way too one-sided. And if there's no attempt to try to do this in a more reasonable way, then it's like all the statements about this is all within the best of intentions. It's like it's all bullshit, right? It's all bullshit. Like the people who think it's the same concept, same exact concept with ICP. The people openly, the pitchfork crowd at dfinity in the name of onboarding people. We need to onboard more people. So let's get out the pitchforks and start yelling at dfinity and telling them all the things that they're doing wrong and all the things they need to do better because we need to onboard more people. So let's get out the pitchforks. So that way, everybody who's just coming into the ecosystem, that's their initial perspective, right? That's their first impression is the pitchfork crowd screaming and hollering and telling SNS projects and or dfinity that they're doing a bad job and that they need to do things different. Like that's the perception. That'd be the first impression for anybody coming in. You have the opportunity of a lifetime. If you want to take advantage of it. If you want to be a hysterical shit poster, be a hysterical shit poster. But you have the opportunity of a lifetime if you want it. And if you do, I will help you out with that because I don't want it. I've been trying to encourage more people to create content because I think there should be more voices. And you have the opportunity of a lifetime. And again, I just want to repeat something. ICP will make you look like a much, much smarter person than what you actually take. Please take my word for this, okay? I'm not that smart of a person. just acting like a normal person and giving reasonable, guys, listen, I know this might be hard to, God, I'm making so many important points late, but the environment on crypto Twitter is the environment on crypto Twitter. It's not really the most rational, productive environment. Safe point. So what I'm saying is that that flows over into the ICP space and the conversation. The what's become normalized in crypto Twitter flows over into the ICP ecosystem in the conversation, just because that's the environment across the entire space. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, people don't have to act hysterical all the time. That's a decision. That's a conscious decision that's made, is to act hysterical as opposed to just trying to be more like reasonable and common sense. So within the ICP space, it doesn't have to be like it is in the rest of crypto. But again, ICP can make you look like a much smarter person than you actually are. And the opportunities that will be open to you will probably be so hard to believe that you have a hard time believing, like I do. And borderline makes me think I'm in a simulation. But I don't even want the opportunities, guys. And I still try to do things the right way. You know what I'm saying? And so if you do want the opportunities, you're not going to get them doing things the wrong way. But guys, irrespective of what happens with this, the investment opportunity itself is, there's just never been a better time to be an ICP, guys. The future is very, very bright for every single one of you, even the shit posters, right? Even the people who are probably net negatives. If you just don't screw up this opportunity, the investment opportunity, um, the future is very bright. And yeah, but I do want to say that the best ideas are going to win moving forward, not the loudest ones. I don't think that a big appeal to my channel has just been giving alternative perspectives from the hysterical lunacy going on everywhere else. And I'm telling you that there's a big audience for that. There is a demand for just more rational, common sense takes, obviously, because everything else, the majority of people are doing the hysterical shit on a regular basis, guys. Like, that's the standing environment for the majority of the crypto space. And so it creates opportunities for people to give alternative takes, positions, everything, perspectives. I think more and more people are interested in just like common sense takes. A lot of people get exhausted with the volume being at 1,000 all the time. You know what I mean? So that's all I got, guys. Um, don't know where the conversation goes from here. Don't really care. Just wanted to start the conversation. I don't think we're at a great place. If you do, that's fine, but I don't. And yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I could throw out some ideas, um, but I don't think people realize, like, the guys, y'all as a group can do much more damage to a project than I could as an individual. And I don't openly say a lot of things publicly about projects because I don't want to destroy somebody's project, their hopes and dreams, their entire life, just because I might view something as being a little bit suspicious, maybe. And so I avoid a lot of that stuff. That's just my decision. That doesn't mean everybody else needs to avoid it. But the reason I avoid it is because I get that it will have an impact to whatever degree, but so will yours. Even if you don't have a platform, a bunch of y'all doing that collectively, that would have a more negative impact than probably me doing it as an individual. So it's like the things that you say and do online do matter. It does contribute to the broader environment. In my opinion, the broader environment around ecosystem projects right now sucks because the general atmosphere is that everything's a scam. Come to our ecosystem. I feel like that's where we are right now. And so I don't know where it goes from here. And I'll probably do at least a couple more videos on this at some point in time. But this was the initial beginning conversation. Okay. That's all I have for this video. This was not financial advice. I don't care if you don't like what I had to say. Um, yeah. Give me an alternative perspective. That's all I have. Take care. Have a good day. I'll see you in the next video.